Yep. That's a really good question. I wouldn't say don't do anything, just meditate. That wouldn't be my answer. What I would say, though, is that you don't need to be angry in order to do something constructive. In fact, anger generally gets in the way of you doing something constructive. You're just one human being, so there's only so much that you can do. But you can always look and see, well, what can I do? When we were talking about the precepts last week, I was talking about how right action includes both restraining what you do and also do, acts of generosity and charity. So you can look and say, well, given the resources that I have, what, where can I reach out? What can I offer? And that sort of thing. There's a sutra called the Bamboo Acrobat Sutra, where the Buddha is talking about these two bamboo acrobats. These are people who would climb up on top of poles and balance and stuff like that. And one of them says, tell you what, when we climb up on the pole, I'll watch out for you and you watch out for me and we'll be okay. And the other guy says, no, how about I watch out for me and you watch out for you and we'll be okay. And the Buddha says, really, it's kind of a little bit of both. If you watch out for yourself, you're watching out for others, and vice versa. But the first thing you can do, the one thing you know you can do, is you can train your own mind. So start with training your mind so that you don't have anger, so that you don't feel hopeless, because it's not hopeless. Dharma gates are boundless. I vow to open them all. Sentient beings are numberless. I vow to liberate them. The fact that you can't really personally liberate all sentient beings doesn't mean that you shouldn't commit to doing that. So do what you can. Right? And start by watching out for your own state of mind. Does that make sense? That's always a big one. I talk to a lot of groups of people who aren't Buddhist, but they're interested in this kind of stuff, and this question of, well, shouldn't I be angry about injustice comes up sometimes. And the answer is, do what you can about injustice, but why do you need to be angry about it? Anger is never conquered by anger. Only by non-anger is anger conquered. And it's true when you think about it. You think about it like a really good lawyer. He can argue a case very vigorously and, plan out a strategy really well in order to win a case, but not ever get angry. And in fact, to get angry and be outraged is probably going to make you make bad decisions. So sure, want things to change. That's good. We desire for things to be better is a good desire. But don't cling to it. Don't think, oh, it's got to change or it's going to be awful. It's not awful. Things change all the time. Everything changes. When you look at this in perspective of the grand scheme of things, even within your life, it's impermanent. It's going to change. It's going to change again. You have to be kind of realistic about it. It depends on the kids and how old they are and that kind of thing. Thich Nhat Hanh's actually got some books on working with mindfulness with children that are pretty good. And so I would kind of start there. Obviously you wouldn't have them, if it's a small child, you wouldn't have them sit down and try to meditate on their breath for 20 minutes. But you can do little short meditations. There's little guided meditations and chanting. Remember, there's a lot of ways to train your mind besides just meditating too. There's contemplations and chants and affirmations and all kinds of things that they can be learning about depending on their age. That'll be useful to them. Well, did I ever tell you? I'm sure some of you have heard this story about the Tibetan strobe candle. When I was about 12 years old, I guess, 12 or 13, I used to go with my mom to the when she went to Piggly Wiggly, I'd go with her, and then I'd go down to the import store that was in the same strip center, and I'd just kind of hang out and look at the cool stuff from around the world. And one day I was in there, and they had this little display rack of these candles that they called Tibetan strobe candles, and it was basically a wooden dowel, and it was wrapped in some sort of fabric that was impregnated with some chemical, probably toxic, and and then paraffin all around it and everything. It looked kind of like one of these big wax lawn torches, but a little bit different. It said that there was a little display card that said that Tibetan monks used these in meditation to achieve altered states of consciousness. So I'd been trying to learn how to meditate from magazines and stuff, and I thought, well, altered states of consciousness sounds pretty cool, so I'm going to try one of these. And the theory was that you'd light this and the flame would strobe. And so I got it, and that night I put it in a vase on top of my dresser and lit it, and sure enough, the flame was kind of stroboscopic. It was really cool. And so I sat down and stared at the candle. And a little bit of time went by, and I didn't enter an altered state of consciousness, so I thought, well, I probably need music. So I put on Inagata Devita, the long version. And I left the arm up on the stereo. Those of you who had record players know that, you'd get to the end of it and it would start over again if you had left the little arm up. So I sat there and watched the strobe candle burn for about 2 hours and listened to Inagata Devita I don't know how many times. Never achieved an altered state of consciousness. But sometimes, even now, I'll sit down and meditate, and Inagata Devita will start playing in my head. So it's not a recommended technique.